Now, after looking into the characteristics of the living organism, now we have to start with the next topic in this chapter, that is diversity in the living world. So here I am going to describe one term, that is biodiversity. Biodiversity is the occurrence of different types of the organism on the Earth's surface. Yes, what is biodiversity? Occurrence of different types of organism on Earth. Till now on the Earth, around 1.7 to 1.8 million species they have been discovered so far. Yes, till now 1.7 to 1.8 million species of plants and animals they have been discovered so far. Among this 1.7 to 1.8 million of the diversity, let's see what is the contribution of the plants and animals. Amongst this diversity, contribution of the animals is 1.25 million. Animal diversity is quite high. The contribution by the plants only going to contribute 0.55 million of diversity. Among the animals, can you tell me which group is most diverse one? सबसे ज़्यादा diversity कौन से group की है? Yes, it is known to everybody. Maximum diversity is for the insects, right? In the case of the plants, maximum diversity is for which plants? Maximum diversity is for flowering plants. And you might be knowing this group of plants, they are also known as angiosperm. Yes? So after reviewing the different types of the plant and animal species, their number, now we will see how to classify these organisms. So you have just seen such a huge diversity, around 1.7 to 1.8 million species they have been discovered so far. It is not at all possible to study all these species. It is impossible to study each and every organism individually. So to study these organisms, to make study of these organisms proper, feasible, easier. Now scientists, what they have done? The scientists, they have placed these organisms into groups. Yes, scientists, they have divided the organism into groups on the basis of similarities and dissimilarities with respect to the characters. So what is the outcome? What is the usefulness of this? The usefulness is by looking the characteristic of one group, you can have fair idea about the characteristic of 100 of organisms which are present in that group. So let's write it down. Such a huge diversity is present on the earth. it is nearly impossible. It is impossible to study each organism individually. So to make the study of these organisms easier possible, yes. So what scientists, biologists, they have done? They have divided these organisms into groups. Divided organisms into groups and subgroups. Yes, and this division, it is based on similarities and differences. On the basis of similarities and differences. So what is the outcome of this? By looking into the characteristics of one group, we can have fair idea about the characteristics of 100 of organisms which are placed in that group. You know what these groups they are known as? These groups they are known as taxonomic categories. Groups where organisms they are placed. Yes, what these groups are known as? Taxonomic categories. And this process of placing the organism into groups and subgroups on the basis of similarities and dissimilarity is known as classification. Yes, you got that? What is classification? It is the process of placing the organism into groups and subgroups on the basis of similarities and dissimilarities. So let's write the definition of classification. Classification is the process of placing the organisms into groups and subgroups on the basis of similarities and differences. Similarities and differences with respect to features, or you can say with respect to characteristics. So what is classification is clear to all of you? Now for the classification of the organisms, certain principles, certain procedures, they are followed. The branch of science which deals with the principle and procedure of classification, this branch of science is known as taxonomy. So let's see what is taxonomy in detail here. Now let's deal with the taxonomy. Term taxonomy is derived from two Greek words, that is taxa and nomis. Taxonomy is derived from two Greek words. Yes, the two Greek words, that is taxa and nomis. Now what do you mean by taxa? Taxa means arrangement. Yes, this is means arrangement. And what is norms? Norms means principles, rules. So through this we can easily know what is taxonomy. Taxonomy, it is branch of science which deals with principles and procedures for arrangement of organism, for classification. So let's write this definition. It is branch of science which deals with principles and procedures of grouping of organism, of arrangement of organism, and what this grouping and arrangement it is known as, it is classification. Now the term taxonomy, it was coined by the scientist A.P. de Candolle. Yes, term was coined by him. Father of taxonomy is Carolus Linnaeus. Father is Carolus Linnaeus. Father of Indian taxonomy is Santa Pau. Indian taxonomy is Santa Pau. So now here we are going to see what are the basic elements of taxonomy. Basic elements, basic processes in the taxonomy. 4 basic processes are there. 1, characterization. Then identification. Then nomenclature. And classification. So these are 4 basic elements. These are the 4 processes which are part of taxonomy. So now we are going to deal with these processes slightly in detail. So now the first process related to the taxonomy which we will study, that is characterization. Characterization involves study of all the possible characteristics associated with organism. It involves listing of all the possible features characteristics of organism. जिस ऑर्गेनिज्म को हमने क्लासिफाई करना है, जिस ऑर्गेनिज्म को हमने आइडेंटिफाई करना है, इस ऑर्गेनिज्म के हम सारे कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स लिस्ट करेंगे, सो दैट ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दीज कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स वी कैन परफॉर्म classification of the organism. Now the characteristic which we can study here, that is morphological characteristic, that is external appearance of the organism. Along with that, there can be also study of internal structure, that is anatomical features, then cell structure, embryology, physiology. So all the possible characters, they are studied in this first step. Now, on the basis of the characterization, taxonomy can be classified under two heads. On the basis of characterization, taxonomy can be classified under two heads, that is classical taxonomy and modern taxonomy. In the classical taxonomy, the features which are utilized, it involves only morphological characteristics. Only morphology. In the modern taxonomy, morphology is utilized. Morphology to use करेंगे ही. But along with the morphology, several other characteristics, they are also included. Like just one we have discussed here, anatomy, internal study, cell structure study, developmental processes. Developmental processes, and another one is ecological role of organism. So classical is only going to deal with external features, morphology. Modern taxonomy, it is broader one, wider one, along with the morphology going to deal all of these features. अब हमने ऑर्गेनिज्म के करेक्टरिस्टिक्स को स्टडी कर लिया है. ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ दीज करेक्टरिस्टिक्स नाउ वी आर गोइंग टू परफॉर्म द सेकंड स्टेप, दैट इज आइडेंटिफिकेशन. सेकंड वन, identification. In the identification, characteristics of the organisms, they are compared with the characteristics of already discovered groups. Yes, just now we have listed these characteristics. Now the characteristic of the organisms, they are compared with the characteristic of already discovered groups. So what we are going to perform here, comparison of characteristic of organism with already discovered groups, discovered organisms. Now to explain the identification, to explain this, I am citing one example here. Let's say there are three different plants. They belong to the three species, plant species X, Y, Z. Three plant species. And in the locality I surveyed, I obtained one plant from there. Let's say that plant is T. In the locality I surveyed, I obtained one plant. Let's say that plant is T. Now I have to identify this plant. Now how will I do? How will I perform this? Now I will enlist the characteristics of this plant. That is, I will study the characteristics of this plant. That is the first step. After that, the characteristic of this plant is compared with the characteristic of these three plant species. I will perform the comparison. Yes, comparison will be performed. After the comparison, what I observed, that this plant T, it shows maximum similarity with plant belonging to Y species. Plant T is showing similarities with the plant belonging to Y species. So it means the plant T which I obtained from that locality, it belongs to Y species. After the comparison, what I found that plant T belongs to the Y species. Plant T belongs to the Y species. This is known as identification. Plant T after comparison, it was observed it belongs to Y plant species. So you got this? In the identification, we are going to perform the comparison. Comparison of what? Of these characteristics which we have listed. Let's see now the next step, nomenclature. Now the next one, that is nomenclature. Nomenclature is providing, it is determining the name of organism, appropriate name of organism. If the organism is new to the taxonomy, if the organism which I got from the locality, if the organism is new to taxonomy, it is a newly discovered organism, in that case, that organism is provided with appropriate name. And providing the appropriate name, this is known as nomenclature. So in the nomenclature, if organism is new to taxonomy, then appropriate, specific, correct name is given to organism. It is given to organism on the basis of some specified rules and criteria. This is going to represent nomenclature. Now after the nomenclature, now the last one, classification. Yes, what we have done in the second step, I have performed the comparison. Yes, comparison of the plant with the already known group. If the plant is showing similarity with that group, then it is placed in the same one. But if it is showing the dissimilarities, then a new group is generated to place that organism. Yes, try to listen to this. We have performed the comparison with already groups, already discovered groups. If the organism is showing comparison with already discovered group, then the organism is placed in same group. If similarities are there, but if the organism is not showing any similarities with already discovered group, then what you are going to do, then a new group is formed. Yes, a new group is generated to place that organism. And what is this? What is this? Placing of the organism into groups and subgroups. Just now I have discussed the placing of organism into groups and subgroup. This is going to represent classification. And we have discussed these groups, what they are known as: taxonomic categories. So what is done in the classification? On the basis of similarities and dissimilarities, organism is placed into the groups. And if the organism is new to taxonomy, then a new group is generated to place that organism. So this is all about the taxonomy. So here in the taxonomy, we have studied 4 processes. First one, listing of characteristics, that is characterization. Then performing the comparison, that is identification. Then naming of organism, nomenclature. Now this was the last one, that is classification. Now after this, in the next class, we are going to deal with the nomenclature and classification in detail. Thank you so much.